The Galactic Council chamber had never been this loud before. Thousands of voices echoed through the giant circular hall. Alien leaders argued from floating platforms, while glowing screens flashed warning signs across the room. Emergency lights painted the walls red. Something was terribly wrong in the galaxy. Trade routes had collapsed across 3 major sectors. Cargo fleets had vanished without any distress calls. Border systems were under attack by pirates stronger than ever before. Entire colonies had stopped responding, and nobody understood why. At the center of the chamber, Supreme Counselor Varix slammed his clawed hand onto the glowing table. "Silence!" he shouted. Slowly, the room became quiet. The old reptilian leader looked exhausted. His yellow eyes moved across the nervous crowd. "For the 7th time this cycle," Varix said, "we are here because another star system has gone dark." A wave of fear moved through the chamber. A tall, insect-like ambassador stood from his seat. "This is impossible," he hissed. "Our fleets patrol those sectors every day." Another leader laughed bitterly. "Your fleets?" The heavy-armored warrior growled. "Your ships run the second pirates appear." Angry shouting exploded again. But suddenly, the giant doors behind the chamber opened. A military officer rushed inside. The room immediately fell silent. The officer looked terrified. "Counselor," he said carefully, "we just lost contact with the entire Kuros border." Several leaders stood up in shock. "That sector has 20 colonies. My people live there. What destroyed them?" The officer swallowed hard. "We don't know." Fear spread across the room like cold water. For months, the galaxy had been slowly falling apart. Small problems became large disasters. Safe regions became dangerous overnight. And every problem started after one single event. Humanity vanished. 3 months earlier, humanity had suddenly abandoned every military station, embassy, and colony outside their home territory. No war, no threats, no explanation. They simply left. At first, most alien races celebrated the news. Humans had become too powerful over the last century. Human ships protected trade lanes. Human engineers repaired ancient technology nobody else understood. Human soldiers ended wars before they spread. Many species secretly hated how important humanity had become. So when the human ambassador stood before the council months earlier and calmly announced, "Humanity no longer wishes to participate in galactic affairs," many leaders smiled with relief. Some even applauded. The humans quietly disconnected from the council network and returned to Earth space. Since then, everything had become worse. Pirates suddenly attacked routes that humans once protected. Border conflicts exploded across dozens of systems. Ancient enemies returned from hiding, and now entire colonies were disappearing. Counselor Varix looked toward the stars outside the massive chamber window. His voice became quieter. "Has Earth answered any of our messages?" The officer shook his head. "No response, sir." Murmurs filled the chamber again. A thin, silver-skinned ambassador crossed his arms. "They are punishing us," he said coldly. "Humans are arrogant creatures." "No," another leader whispered nervously. "This feels different." Before anyone could answer, every screen inside the chamber suddenly turned black. The lights dimmed. A warning alarm echoed through the hall. The military officer stepped backward in fear. "We're receiving an emergency transmission." "From where?" Varix demanded. The officer stared at the screen. "Kuros border." The room became silent. Then static filled the air. A damaged video appeared. Smoke covered the screen. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Explosions echoed in the background. An alien captain stumbled into view. Blood covered his face. Behind him, people screamed. "Please," the captain gasped. "If anyone receives this, run." The chamber watched in frozen silence. "What attacked you?" Counselor Varix asked. The captain looked behind him in terror. "They're back." The transmission shook violently. Outside the ship window, massive dark shapes moved through space. Not ships. Something worse. Long black machines covered in red lights drifted silently through the stars like giant metal predators. One of them fired a red beam. An entire cruiser beside the captain exploded instantly. Panic erupted on the bridge. They came from deep space, the captain screamed. We can't stop them. Another explosion threw him to the floor. Then the captain looked directly into the camera. His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. The Void Fleet has returned. The transmission ended. Complete silence filled the council chamber. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Far in the back of the room, one ancient alien slowly stood from his chair. He was old enough to remember stories most believed were myths. His hands trembled. No, he whispered. Counselor Varix looked toward him carefully. You know this name? The old alien stared at the dark screen with fear in his eyes. Thousands of years ago, he said slowly, before this council existed, entire civilizations vanished near the outer rim. The chamber listened carefully. Worlds burned. Fleets disappeared. Billions died. Several leaders shifted nervously. What stopped them? Someone asked. The old alien swallowed hard. That is the mystery. One day, the machine simply vanished. Silence returned again. Then another council member suddenly spoke. A military commander from the northern sectors. His face had become pale. The human border fleets, he whispered. Every eye turned toward him. What about them? Varix asked. The commander activated a star map. Red warning symbols appeared across deep space regions near the galactic edge. These sectors, he said carefully, were always protected by human military zones. The chamber watched quietly. No alien ships were allowed near them. Humans claimed the areas were unstable. A terrible realization slowly spread across the room. The humans were not protecting the galaxy from pirates. They were guarding something. And now they were gone. Suddenly another alarm echoed across the chamber. A terrified officer shouted from the control station. Emergency report. Everyone turned. 3 more colonies just disappeared. Panic exploded instantly. Leaders shouted over each other. Some demanded fleets. Others demanded planetary evacuations. But Counselor Varix barely heard them, because he was staring at the stars beyond the giant window. The Galactic Council chamber no longer sounded powerful. Now it sounded afraid. Emergency alarms echoed through the giant halls while military officers rushed between glowing screens. Reports arrived every minute. More colonies had vanished near the outer rim. Entire defense fleets stopped responding after entering the dark sectors. Nobody understood how the enemy moved so fast. Counselor Varix stood silently near the central star map. Red warning symbols covered almost 1/3 of the galaxy now. Every symbol meant millions of lives. The Kuros border is gone, an officer reported weakly. No survivor confirmed. Another voice interrupted. We lost contact with the Turan defense stations. Pirate activity has tripled in the southern systems. Civilian ships are fleeing toward the core worlds. Fear spread through the chamber again. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council looked helpless. Then the giant doors opened. A fleet commander entered quickly with several armored soldiers behind him. We returned from the human border sectors, he announced. The room became quiet instantly. Counselor Varix stepped forward. What did you find? The commander hesitated. Then he activated a hologram. A massive structure appeared above the chamber floor. The entire council stared in disbelief. It was enormous. A giant black station floated near a dead star. Its surface was covered with heavy weapons, damaged armor plates, and warning lights. Thousands of human defense ships drifted silently around it. But what truly terrified the council was the size. The station was larger than planets. What is this? Someone whispered. The commander looked shaken. We found dozens of them hidden across the outer rim. Another hologram appeared. Then another. Massive human fortresses surrounded entire regions of deep space. Minefields stretched across star systems. Ancient cannons pointed toward the darkness beyond the galaxy. And every station carried the same warning message. Do not cross. Several council members exchanged nervous looks. These are military fortresses. One leader said. No. The commander replied quietly. The room looked toward him. He swallowed hard. These were prison walls. Silence. Counselor Varix slowly stepped closer. Explain. The commander zoomed the hologram outward. Beyond the human defenses was complete darkness. No stars. No colonies. Nothing. Then strange movement appeared inside the darkness. Tiny red lights. Thousands of them. The same light seen in the destroyed transmission. The machines are gathering beyond the border, the commander said. Panic spread immediately. How long have humans known about this? Why do they hide it? This is impossible. But the commander raised his voice. There's more. The hologram changed again. This time, ancient human battle recordings filled the chamber. Huge fleets burned in deep space. Human warships rammed black machine vessels to stop them. Entire stars exploded during giant battles near the galactic edge. Millions of human soldiers had died there, and nobody in the galaxy even knew. The room became silent again. One council member slowly sat down in shock. All these years, he whispered. Another ambassador looked horrified. Humans were fighting a hidden war. The commander nodded. Alone. Counselor Varric stared at the battle footage carefully. The recordings were old. Some were over 200 years ancient, which meant humanity had protected the galaxy for centuries without asking for help. Then another officer rushed into the chamber. We translated human military archives. Varric turned immediately. Read them. The officer activated another screen. A human admiral appeared in the recording. His face looked exhausted. Smoke drifted behind him while warning sirens echoed around the bridge. This message is for future command, the admiral said. The enemy cannot be allowed past the border. The screen showed dark machine fleets moving through burning star systems. Every civilization beyond this line has already been consumed. The council watched in horror. The admiral continued. If the galaxy discovers the truth too early, panic will destroy interstellar civilization before the machines ever arrive. Another explosion shook the recording. We fight in silence so the galaxy may live in peace. The message ended. Nobody spoke for several moments. Then an elderly council member lowered his head slowly, and we hated them for it. No one answered, because it was true. For decades, alien governments accused humanity of becoming too militaristic, too aggressive, too powerful. They complained about human fleets near the borders. They demanded humanity reduce military expansion. But now the truth stood before them. Humanity was never preparing to conquer the galaxy. Humanity was holding the line. A loud alarm suddenly interrupted the silence. An officer shouted from the control station. Emergency report from the outer colonies. A damaged transmission appeared instantly. Entire cities burned beneath dark skies. Giant machine structures walked through the ruins while civilians ran in terror. Energy beams turned buildings into ash. One machine rose above the destroyed city. Its red eye scanned survivors coldly. Then the screen went black. The chamber exploded into panic again. They're moving toward the core. We need every fleet mobilized. Our defenses won't survive. Counselor Varric raised his voice. Enough. Slowly, the shouting stopped. He turned toward the commander. How strong are these machines? The commander answered honestly. Stronger than every fleet in this chamber combined. Fear returned immediately. Another council member spoke carefully. Then why did humanity leave now? Nobody answered at first. Then the old alien from earlier slowly stood again. His weak voice echoed through the chamber. Because they were tired. The room looked toward him. He pointed toward the battle recordings. For centuries, humans protected races that mocked them. Silence filled the chamber. They died at the border while we called them dangerous. Several leaders lowered their eyes. The old alien continued. And when we pushed humanity away, his voice trembled slightly. They finally let us face the darkness alone. No one argued, because deep inside, they all knew he was right. Suddenly, another signal appeared on the main screen. Human origin. The galaxy was breaking apart. Every hour, new disaster reports flooded into the Galactic Council chamber. Entire trade routes had disappeared. Military outposts stopped answering signals. Refugee ships crowded the core systems in endless waves. Fear ruled every sector now. The Void Fleet was no longer hiding beyond the border. It was inside the galaxy. Counselor Varix stood near the giant star map with dark circles under his eyes. Red warning symbols spread across dozens of systems, like a growing infection. Another colony had fallen, then another, and another. We lost the Venari shipyards, an officer reported nervously. A shocked ambassador stood up instantly. That station builds half our defense fleet. The officer lowered his head. It no longer exists. Silence filled the chamber again. No one even argued anymore. The council had finally understood the truth. Their fleets were weak. The galaxy had depended on humanity far more than anyone realized. Suddenly, another emergency signal flashed across the room. A damaged military transmission appeared. The image shook violently. An alien commander screamed over the sound of explosions behind him. They're everywhere. Black machine ships filled the stars outside his bridge window. Red beams cut through warships like paper. Entire cruisers exploded in seconds. Our weapons are useless, the commander shouted desperately. Another officer behind him turned in terror. They breached the defense line. The transmission suddenly filled with static. Then the screen went black. The chamber remained frozen in silence. One council member slowly sat down. That was the 5th Battle Fleet, he whispered weakly. Another leader shook his head. Destroyed in less than 10 minutes. Panic spread across the room again. Some demanded evacuations. Others demanded surrender. A few simply stared at the screens in complete fear. Counselor Varix finally raised his voice. Where are the human fleets? Nobody answered, because humanity remained silent. Every message sent toward Earth space returned unanswered. Human ships had completely vanished from galactic territory. Meanwhile, outside the Council world, millions of civilians tried escaping the outer systems. Giant refugee fleets crowded the hyperlanes. Families abandoned entire planets overnight. And still the machines advanced. The Void Fleet moved without emotion, without mercy. They did not demand surrender. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path. Far away near the destroyed world of Teres 9, a small civilian rescue ship drifted through smoke and burning debris. Inside the ship, Captain Wren struggled to control the damaged engines. "We're losing power," his pilot shouted. Wren looked out the front window. The colony world below was dying. Entire cities burned beneath black clouds while giant machine harvesters walked across the surface. Massive metal towers rose from the ruins, pulling pieces of the planet apart. The machines were stripping the world for resources, not conquering, eating. A frightened child near the back of the ship began crying quietly. Are the monsters coming here too? Nobody answered her, because everyone knew the truth. Yes. Suddenly the rescue ship alarm screamed. 3 machine fighters appeared behind them. "They found us," the pilot yelled. Red beams flashed through space instantly. One shot barely missed the ship. Another tore through the engines. The rescue vessel spun violently. People screamed inside the cabin. Captain Wren grabbed the controls desperately. Hold together, hold together. The machine fighters moved closer slowly, like predators enjoying the hunt. Then something massive appeared above the burning planet, a human warship. The giant black vessel dropped from hyperspace directly between the rescue ship and the machine fighters. Its weapons fired instantly. Bright blue energy ripped through space. All 3 machine fighters exploded. The rescue ship passengers stared in shock. "The humans," someone whispered. More human ships emerged behind the first vessel. Dozens, then hundreds. Silent gray warships filled the stars above the dying colony. The machine forces immediately changed direction toward the new threat. But the human fleet did not retreat. A cold human voice echoed across every communication channel. "Civilian vessel, move toward evacuation, Corridor 7. Captain Wren stared at the screen in disbelief. "You came back?" No answer came. The human fleet charged directly toward the machines. Then the battle began. Space itself lit with fire. Human ships fought differently from every alien fleet. They moved aggressively, ignoring damage that would make other commanders retreat. One human cruiser rammed directly into a giant machine harvester. Both exploded together. Another human destroyer activated some kind of gravity weapon, crushing several machine ships into burning metal. Captain Wren watched silently. The humans were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to delay the enemy long enough for civilians to escape, even if it killed them. Back inside the Galactic Council chamber, new reports arrived from every sector. Human fleets spotted near Terry's 9. Refugee convoys rescued by human patrols. Machine advance temporarily slowed. Hope spread through the chamber for the first time in weeks. But it did not last long. Another officer rushed forward nervously. We discovered classified council records. Counselor Varix frowned. What records? The officer activated a hologram. Private meetings appeared across the screen. Secret conversations between powerful alien governments from years earlier. The chamber slowly realized what they were watching. A conspiracy. One recording showed several ambassadors speaking privately. Human influence grows too strong. One leader said coldly, "They control border security." Another added, "Soon the galaxy will depend on them for everything." A third voice spoke quietly, "Then we remove them." The chamber became silent. Another recording appeared. Economic sanctions against human colonies. Political attacks inside the council. Military restrictions targeting human fleets. Years of pressure. Years of manipulation. The goal had been simple: force humanity to leave galactic affairs. Several council members lowered their heads in shame. The diplomatic fleet traveled toward Earth in complete silence. No one aboard the council ship spoke much anymore. The galaxy outside their windows was dying. Burning colonies drifted through space like broken stars. Refugee fleets crowded every safe route. Military distress calls echoed endlessly across communication channels. And still, humanity remained silent. Counselor Varix stood alone inside the command deck of the lead vessel. His tired eyes watched the star map carefully. Every few hours, another system disappeared. The Void Fleet moved closer to the core worlds with terrifying speed. "We are entering former human territory," a navigator reported quietly. Varix looked up immediately. Outside the ship window, giant warning beacons floated through the darkness. "Unauthorized entry is forbidden. Turn back immediately." Several council officers exchanged nervous looks. Then the fleet crossed the border, and everyone on the bridge froze. Massive defense stations appeared from the darkness around them. Not dozens, hundreds. Gigantic human fortresses surrounded entire star systems. Planet-sized shipyards drifted beside asteroid fields, while endless lines of warships moved between them. The council ships looked tiny beside them. One officer whispered in shock, "How long have humans been building this?" No one answered, because nobody truly knew humanity anymore. The fleet moved deeper into human space carefully. Every system they passed revealed even more defenses. Hidden weapons platforms near dead moons. Defense satellites surrounding stars. Huge shipyards building warships larger than entire cities. Humanity had transformed their territory into a fortress, and they had done it quietly. Suddenly a warning signal appeared across every screen. Unknown vessels detected. Human Defense Command active. Several human warships emerged beside the Council fleet without warning, their weapons locked instantly. A cold voice echoed through the bridge. "State your purpose." Counselor Varix stepped forward slowly. "This is the Galactic Council diplomatic fleet." He answered carefully. "We request permission to approach Earth." Silence followed. Then the human voice returned. "Permission granted." The weapons lowered, but the human ships remained close beside them the entire journey, watching, studying, as if expecting betrayal. Hours later, the Council fleet finally arrived at Earth, and once again the entire bridge fell silent. Earth was beautiful. Blue oceans reflected sunlight beneath massive white clouds. Bright cities covered entire continents like glowing rivers of light. Orbital stations surrounded the planet peacefully, while civilian ships moved calmly between them. It did not look like a civilization preparing for extinction. It looked safe, stable, alive. One ambassador stared at the planet in disbelief. "The galaxy burns," she whispered, "and Earth remains untouched." The fleet slowly entered orbit. Soon, a single shuttle carried the council representatives toward the surface. Varix sat quietly during descent. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from shame. When the shuttle landed, human soldiers waited outside. Tall armor guards carrying advanced weapons surrounded the landing platform silently. None of them looked angry. None looked emotional. They simply watched the visitors carefully. A human officer stepped forward. "This way." The council delegation followed him into a massive government complex overlooking the ocean. The building was calm and quiet. No panic, no emergency alarms, no fear. It almost felt unreal. Finally, the humans led them into a large meeting chamber. Several human leaders waited near the center table. Among them stood a gray-haired admiral wearing a dark military uniform. His eyes looked cold and tired. Counselor Varix recognized him immediately. Admiral Hayes, the commander of the old border fleets, the man who spent decades fighting the darkness beyond the galaxy. Hayes looked at the delegation silently for several seconds. Then he spoke. "You came late." No one answered, because there was nothing to say. Varix slowly lowered his head. "The galaxy is collapsing." Hayes nodded once. "We know." Another council member stepped forward desperately. "Then help us." The Admiral's expression did not change. "For centuries," he said quietly, "humanity protected worlds that hated us." The room remained silent. Hayes activated a hologram above the table. Images filled the air instantly. Human soldiers dying at the border, burning warships drifting through deep space, destroyed colonies saved by human fleets. Then new images appeared. Council debates mocking humanity. Alien sanctions against human expansion. Political speeches calling humans dangerous. "You feared human strength more than the enemy beyond your borders," Hayes said calmly. No one could deny it. The Admiral looked directly at Varix now. Millions of humans died holding that line. His voice became colder. "And while they died, the Council accused us of becoming too powerful." The shame inside the room became unbearable. One ambassador stepped forward weakly. "We made mistakes." Hayes stared at him. "Mistakes." The hologram changed again. Entire human fleets exploded against machine forces near the outer rim. "These were not mistakes," the Admiral said quietly. "These were sacrifices." Silence filled the chamber. Finally, Varix spoke carefully. "What happens if humanity refuses to help?" Hayes answered immediately. "Then the galaxy dies." The simple truth hit the room like a weapon. Several council members lowered their heads. One quietly wiped tears from his eyes. Varix stepped closer to the table slowly. "For everything humanity suffered, the Council accepts responsibility." Hayes said nothing. Varix continued. "But the Void Fleet reaches the core worlds. Billions will die." The Admiral looked toward the ocean outside the window. For several long seconds, he remained silent. Then he finally spoke. "We warned the galaxy for years." Another painful silence followed. Then Hayes looked back toward the delegation. "And when humanity needed allies, the solar system became a battlefield overnight. Warning sirens echoed across every human world, while defense fleets moved into position around Earth. Giant orbital cannons rotated slowly toward deep space. Thousands of warships formed massive lines near the outer planets. Humanity had stopped hiding, and the galaxy watched in silence. Across countless alien worlds, civilians gathered around public screens to witness the impossible. Human war fleets were mobilizing again, not small patrol groups, not border defenses, entire armadas. Near Jupiter, gigantic shipyards opened like metal giants awakening from sleep. Massive warships emerged from hidden docks beneath the planet's storms. Near Saturn, huge carriers launched endless waves of fighters into the darkness. Even old mining stations transformed into military fortresses. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity's true strength, and it was terrifying. Inside Earth Defense Command, Admiral Hayes stood before a massive tactical display filled with red enemy markers. The Void Fleet had entered the solar system. Thousands of machine ships advanced toward Earth without slowing down. Cold, silent, endless. A human officer stepped beside Hayes. "Outer defense line reports enemy contact in 12 minutes. Hayes nodded calmly. "Evacuation status?" "Civilian transports already moving underground." The admiral looked around the command room. Nobody panicked. Nobody shouted. Human officers moved with cold focus, as if they had prepared for this moment their entire lives. Because they had. Meanwhile, aboard the Council flagship orbiting Earth, alien leaders watched the human preparations in stunned silence. Counselor Verex stared at the tactical displays carefully. "There are more human warships here than the entire Council Navy," he whispered. One officer beside him looked pale. "And these are only local defense fleets." Fear spread to the bridge again. For years, the galaxy believed humanity had become weaker after leaving galactic politics. Now they understood the truth. Humanity had not weakened. Humanity had been preparing. Suddenly alarms echoed across every ship in orbit. The enemy had arrived. Far beyond Pluto, space itself twisted unnaturally. Then the Void Fleet emerged. Black machine vessels poured from hyperspace like an endless storm. Red lights covered the darkness between stars. Even experienced officers froze at the sight. The fleet was enormous, much larger than anything seen before. A human communications officer spoke quietly. "Enemy entering weapons range." Admiral Hayes stared at the tactical display. Then he gave the order. "Fire." The solar system exploded with light. Massive defense cannons hidden near the outer planets fired together. Bright blue beams crossed millions of kilometers instantly, striking the front lines of the machine fleet. Entire enemy ships vanished, but more continued forward. Human warships charged next. Thousands of vessels moved directly into the machine formation without hesitation. The first collision shook space itself. Explosions burned brighter than stars, while missiles filled the darkness between fleets. Human destroyers fired heavy railguns capable of tearing machine cruisers apart, but the Void Fleet kept advancing. Machine beams cut through human ships mercilessly. Entire squadrons disappeared in seconds. Still, humanity did not retreat. Inside one human cruiser, Captain Elias gripped the command chair tightly while alarms screamed around him, port shields collapsing. Enemy boarding signatures detected. Another explosion shook the ship violently. Smoke filled the bridge. Elias looked toward the tactical display. 3 civilian evacuation convoys remained trapped behind enemy lines. If the machines broke through now, millions would die. The captain made his decision instantly. All power to engines. A shocked officer turned toward him. "Sir." Elias stood slowly. "We hold this line." Outside, the damaged cruiser accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. Machine ships fired continuously against it. Armor melted. Engines burned. Still the human ship continued forward. Then Elias gave the final order. "Activate core overload." Several crew members froze. One whispered softly, "Sir, we're still aboard." Elias looked toward the burning stars outside the window. "Yes," he answered calmly. The cruiser smashed directly into the center of the machine fleet. A second later, its reactor exploded like a newborn sun. The shock wave tore dozens of enemy vessels apart instantly. Back on Earth, millions watched the battle unfold across live broadcasts. Human ships burned across space, but the machine advance slowed. Humanity was buying time with blood. Inside the Council flagship, silence filled the bridge. Alien leaders watched human crews sacrifice themselves again and again without hesitation. Verex lowered his head slowly. "They knew this war would come someday," he whispered. No one answered, because it was obvious now. Every hidden fortress, every secret shipyard, every defense line humanity built after leaving the galaxy, all of it was preparation for this exact moment. Suddenly another alert flashed across human command systems. A second Void Fleet had appeared near Mars, then a third near Saturn. The enemy was surrounding the solar system completely. A human officer looked toward Admiral Hayes nervously. "They're adapting faster than expected." Hayes remained calm, released the Helios protocol. Several officers exchanged uneasy looks. One spoke carefully. "Admiral, once activated, there's no reversing it." Hayes nodded once. "Do it." Deep near the surface of the sun, ancient machines awakened. Hidden structures emerged slowly from the star itself. Massive rings surrounded the burning solar surface, while gigantic energy collectors began glowing bright white. The council officers stared in horror. What is humanity doing? Then the sun changed color. For one terrifying moment, the entire star became brighter. A focused beam of solar energy fired across space like a divine weapon. The blast struck directly through the largest machine fleet near Saturn. Thousands of enemy ships vanished instantly. Even the Void fleet finally slowed. Inside the council flagship, stunned silence filled the bridge. Varric stared at the tactical display. Humans weaponized their own star. But despite the massive destruction, new enemy fleets continued arriving. The machines were endless. Admiral Hayes studied the battlefield carefully. Then another transmission arrived. The galaxy watched humanity march toward death. Across thousands of worlds, public broadcasts showed endless human war fleets leaving the solar system one final time. Giant carriers, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and ancient dreadnoughts disappeared into hyperspace together. Their destination was the machine core world, the heart of the Void fleet. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, complete silence filled the room. No arguments remained anymore. No politics. No pride. Only fear. Counselor Varric stood near the great chamber window, watching refugee ships move across the skies above the capital world. Behind him, another emergency report arrived. 2 more core systems have fallen. Nobody reacted. The Council already knew the truth. If humanity failed, civilization itself would end. Far away in deep space, the human assault fleet traveled through regions no alien ship had ever entered before. Dead stars drifted through endless darkness. Broken planets floated silently beside ancient wreckage. Entire solar systems had been stripped empty long ago. The Void fleet had consumed everything here. Inside the flagship Resolute, Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge staring toward the black void ahead. A young officer approached carefully. Scouts confirmed visual contact with the machine core. The Admiral nodded slowly. "Show me." The main screen activated, and for the first time in human history, the true enemy appeared. Several officers gasped quietly. A giant artificial world floated in the darkness beyond the fleet. The structure was larger than moons. Endless metal towers covered its surface, while billions of red lights moved across it like blood flowing through veins. Machine fleets surrounded it in impossible numbers. The machine core world looked alive. Hayes studied it silently. Then another officer spoke nervously. Enemy fleets already moving to intercept. Red warning signals spread across every tactical display. The final battle had begun. Human ships accelerated immediately. Thousands of vessels charged toward the machine defense lines without hesitation. Then space exploded into fire. Machine beams ripped through the darkness, while human railguns answered with thunderous force. Entire fleets collided near the outer defense ring surrounding the core world. Human casualties rose instantly. Dozens of ships disappeared every minute. Still the fleet pushed forward. Inside one destroyer, Commander Lena held tightly to her station while explosions shook the hull around her. Shields gone. Engine section destroyed. Another impact threw several crew members across the bridge. Smoke filled the air. But Lena kept her eyes locked on the tactical display. The assault teams needed an opening toward the core world, even if it cost everything. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, follow attack formation 7. A nearby captain answered immediately. "That route goes directly through enemy fire." Lena's voice remained calm. "I know." Outside, human ships suddenly changed direction together. Instead of retreating from the machine weapons, they accelerated directly toward them. One by one, human cruisers rammed enemy vessels apart at close range. Others detonated overloaded reactors inside machine formations. The path toward the core slowly opened through pure sacrifice. Back aboard the Resolute, Admiral Hayes watched the battlefield quietly. Millions of humans were dying across the stars at that very moment. Yet nobody hesitated, because Earth still lived behind them. Suddenly another officer turned sharply. "Admiral, assault teams approaching core surface." Hayes nodded once. "Launch ground operation." Small human strike ships immediately broke away from a fleet and descended toward the machine world. Heavy enemy fire surrounded them instantly. Several transports exploded before reaching the surface. but some survived. Inside one landing craft, Captain Elias's daughter, Lieutenant Mara Elias, tightened her grip on her rifle. Her father had died protecting civilians near Terry's 9. Now she walked into the same darkness that killed him. The transport slammed hard onto machine surface. "Move!" her commander shouted. The rear doors opened. A nightmare waited outside. Endless metal towers stretched across the horizon beneath black skies. Giant machine structures moved between rivers of glowing red energy, while mechanical drones descended from above like swarms. Human soldiers charged forward immediately. The battle became brutal. Machine drones attacked without fear, while human teams fought through heavy defenses toward the central intelligence chamber buried deep beneath the surface. Explosions shook the artificial planet constantly. One by one, soldiers fell beside Mara as they pushed deeper underground. Finally, after hours of fighting, the surviving humans reached the central chamber.